Hi everyone, my name is Anna. I am head of global pre-sales and I'm very happy to be a part of this event today. Today I'm going to deliver a demonstration of our debt collection solution, and without a moment of delay, I'm going to switch to the actual product. So give me a moment. So what I would like to cover today is the full cycle of the debt collection, starting from the building the 360 profile degree of our client, building the strategy, executing it, and then controlling the results. Now, Creatio itself allows to automate this full cycle, also ensuring that we have proper engagement level from the recovery agents and the managers who are in charge of debt collection via a set of business process, AI capabilities, and also extensive integration capabilities of our product. So when it comes to design and actual focusing our efforts on debt collection, first thing we need to know is who is our clients, what are their interests, what they are supposed to pay, their due diligence, so on and so forth. So for these purposes, we're building these profiles, and the information that we are collecting comes from multiple sources. For the moment, I'm going to switch into the profile of Alexander Wilson to show what kind of information we're capable to store and how we can leverage that to build our buckets of debt collection and how to focus our strategies around the debts and communication cadence and frequency. So our Alexander Wilson is the client of us who has certain debt collection history. But first of all, the information that we can fetch from the CBS, Core Banking Solutions, and ERP, it can also be stored under the debts profiles, including the whole history of the actual outstanding debts, the due diligence of payments, and as well any promises to pay or payments that we have received so far. Now, the next item that we need to consider when reaching out to this customer is the actual channels that he or she is preferring to communicate via, and what are these channels. So Creatio allows to store multiple communication options and define them by the preference and define which ones we will be using in a particular communication strategy. Creatio profiles are quite extensive, allowing us to also record any connections if we are to record the details of family and bank accounts in other banks or other data that can be considered in that collection process. Since we are running all of these communications, we also are capable to store and sort these details in a timeline view, which basically a history of communication in a chronological sequence, including multiple emails, phone calls, and activities that were running in order to collect these debts. We can use this information afterwards to understand how responsive the customer is, and as well to define what will be our next steps, which system also nicely reports and allocates to various employees of our company. Now, since we know this full profile, we are now able to define what are the buckets that we have. And you can see on the screen right now, these are the exact buckets that we're talking about. And let's take a look into 30-day debtors with a certain threshold of the debt amount. The system collects this data from the profile and defines that these are the clients who have their day debts in our funnel for more than 30 days, and their total amount for recovery goes beyond or above certain number. So as you see, the beauty of this that we provide ability not only build segments on the duration, but as well compile various parameters and criteria, defining the volume of that bucket and create criteria based on the amounts of that recovery amount. So the next portion of this planning, we're still into the planning and preparing for the collection, is the ability to build various strategies. So again, I would like to highlight here that Creatio supports the full cycle of designing of a strategy, defining the tools and channels, and as well the approval process, execution, and analysis of a particular strategy. For the moment, let's take a look at the strategy for 30 days bucket for credit cards. This one is designed to reach out via digital channels and to create certain communication cadence and catch all of the responsive clients in order to reach out via agents. So the value that such approach provides is ability to target the less costly channels, include them in a process where the customers actually start responding. So basically, we are making sure that we are sending some digital emails, SMS, and other reminders, and those who we know react to these communications, we are going to call. So this is the focus of our strategy. In the process of planning, we have the ability to run internal approvals to define who needs to control or give their validation that such channels, such budget on reach out will be allocated to this strategy. In the process of execution, when this strategy is launched, we are capable to understand what are the campaigns that are run by our contact centers, for example, and what are the digital campaigns that we have run, including all of various channels. Did we include emails? Did we include SMS or calls or any other tools for reaching out to the customers? So basically, once that's done, we can see the progress of that collection campaign, and understand, let's say, if we have decided to run it for 4 weeks, at what particular moment we got the major response, what was the cadence, which channels were preferred, what were the actual outcomes of collection, and use that data for the next cycles of strategy planning, and moreover, compare various strategies, other understanding which strategy was more successful, which one created more response. Let's say in this case, we are comparing strategy A versus strategy B, how that worked versus the various segments and buckets that we have launched it versus, and then what was our collection rates. So this information can further be, again, used to define how we are tuning our strategies and what would be our next efforts. Now let's take a look into the particular digital campaign that we used to run this strategy. So let's take into the tools and look into the vectors campaign. This is one of the tools of Creatio where we can define automated process of communicating to customers, to debtors, without any human intervention. So all we need to do is to define which bucket we're going to include into this campaign, how often or what channels we're going to use to reach out to these debtors, and then based on that, how often we're going to remind before we move someone to the contact center to actually make an outgoing phone call to remind about the payment. So again, it allows us to focus our conversations, our actual most costly channel, towards the customers who are responsive and who we know there is a high chance of that recovery, while those who remain unresponsive, we keep reaching out via digital channels. We don't have to control it every time. The system does that instead of us. He has these nice campaigns. And as mentioned, this is one of the examples of process automation. Now, when it comes to the actual execution of, you see, there are different SMS, emails that we sent out. Creatio allows to define templates of messages, uses macro to make these messages personalized. But then when we know that someone has clicked on email or SMS has been delivered, we're actually creating a phone call for the contact center manager who is supposed to call and communicate and define who she or he is speaking to. So for these purposes, let's go back to our strategy and see the actual outbound call campaign. We have many of those, and all of the planning capabilities for these campaigns, queuing capabilities, allow us to define as well which groups out of our contact center are going to be allocated to what particular bucket or what conversation strategy. For example, we have agents who know how to talk to customers who are quite have been delaying a lot of payments. They're hard to collect, so basically hard collection on a certain level. But then we have agents who have very good personal approach, and they need to stay positive with certain customers who are in danger of failing certain payments because they have such habits. Anyway, we have these queues, which you can see on the screen, is another tool how we properly allocate this type of buckets and phone calls to various agents across our team. This one is designed for debtors and campaigns for 30-day bucket call. It includes the team out of one person or several people can be assigned here. So again, we can choose from the agents, pool of agents that we have. And we define that we will have here all of the debts which come with 30 days. And based on that, the system populates the view for the agent who is supposed to make that phone call. So now let's take a look into the actual backend. So whatever we have seen previously, the strategy and the profile is the way we are planning and controlling that execution of a particular collection strategy or collection on a more managerial level. But then when we talk about the actual agents who are making these phone calls, let's take a look at the different workplace, the agent, which again, I would like to highlight, the system provides a much limited capability of what agent can do here, provides a nice home page where we know the key KPIs of that agent. And then we now have the view of actual phone calls that the agent is supposed to do. So for example, Mary King, that we have seen a couple of steps ago, who is assigned to this queue, will have this list of items, top items that she needs to do. Again, she is only entitled to make phone calls on the queues she is allocated to. So she has debtors and she may have debts as well. It will be a different set of debts or queue or items, contacts that she needs to reach out. And this can be related either to debts or activities. And let's say these queues can be open or blind, meaning we can limit the agent capability to choose which call to process. On the other hand, it also gives flexibility into defining the workload among the agent and allocating them to different queues, but still considering the priorities of which phone calls need to be made first. Okay, so when it comes to actual execution of phone call, all Mary needs to do is basically click on open and look into details of what she's supposed to do at the moment. So she needs to review data information, remember to be prepared, speak politely. So there's a hint that we can bring down here to ensure certain guidance to the agent. Even though we have a quite comprehensive profile of Alexander Wilson, in the process of agent communication, we provide a limited set of details which will help an agent to understand how to build that communication strategy and how to define what will be the next step. So we have the communication data, we have the communication history, whether there were any emails or any SMS sent or previous phone calls. And as well, we have details of a call script, which is also automatically populated based on the view or based on the debt or based on the customer. There may be different conditions how we define what conversation hint we are providing to the agent. From here, Mary can go and complete the call, create a new promise to pay, or close it or reschedule, which means there is a level of flexibility so that Mary can define if she takes a new promise to pay, the phone call will be put into the next queue where she needs to remind about the payment. If she's going to close, she's going to reschedule it to maybe another queue to call back later or complete the call. She may take a certain note and just exclude it from any further communications. When Mary needs to know more details about that customer, she can look into the details of debts. And as we see, there are certain types of debts that are outstanding versus this client. And if I'm not comfortable with the information which I see on the screen, there's also always a capability to dive into particular details of the debt, which now I'm able to see that there is the Alexander Wilson who has the mortgage loan. We know certain amount of recovery. There is certain history about the payments and the received payments, as well as any transactions. Creatio is also capable to automate the reconciliation process. And then we also can control the due diligence of customer on the level of promises to pay, whether that has been actually fulfilled or not. Then we also have details around the settlement, which means this data, again, can come from financial system, or we can automate certain level of calculation to understand what will be the penalties or what will be the payment settlement that we agreed on. Let's say if we have agreed that we're going to fetch the customer credit card regularly, and that will help to eliminate these delays in payments. What is the source of payments? Or maybe we made certain reconsideration of the debt conditions or loan conditions, mortgage loan conditions, and we need to record the data versus the debt. So basically what we've seen previously, the agent view is the interface where we have people who are making phone calls, while this screen and this level of information may be necessary, but not particularly for the agent, but definitely is required to the loan recovery manager who needs to build a strategy not only on a company level, but towards a particular customer and understand where this debt currently stands, what are the next steps. And these are the exact steps that can be allocated to different people across the team. And they can come in combination of a loan recovery manager and as well a person, an agent who needs to remind about the promise to pay. So by this that I'm able to move across the stages, define whether this is the current stage of my loan. Each of these stages will be associated with a certain set of activities, reminders to me as loan recovery manager what I need to do. And this is a good tool to prioritize which debts I need to work on, and also a good tool to remind and control my engagement with certain customers, especially if I am in a process of building that relation where I am getting customer committed payment. And I can reflect that and make sure I have that reminder to me regularly and record it. Due to AI capabilities, we are also capable to define, for example, the probability of repayment, which is another indicator for me as a company, as a manager, to understand how much effort I would need to dedicate to this customer, considering the outcome I'm going to receive. So this one has 95% of probability of repayment, which makes it very reasonable to communicate regularly. And apart from the agent who is basically making phone calls, here I can create a phone call, an email, a personal communication touch point right from the profile just by clicking on particular icon. And if I am to send emails, I'm also able to use various templates of the messages. So let's say notices or other templates available across the system, also to simplify my process of reaching out to that customer. Or I can put particular reminders to myself that I need to follow up in certain number of days. So this allows, again, bottom line, that this allows us to create this full profile, not only on the level of customer, but also on the level of a particular debt. And when it comes to understanding of what kind of effort we've done to collect this debt, the system also provides details around the activities, email activities, and all of that in the particular debt, how that related to overall communication. But then the end result of that is basically to understand how much money we have recovered, what is our actual effectiveness. And for these purposes, we have multiple dashboards that we are able to build in the system, combining various types of KPIs. And these dashboards can combine data for a particular role, for a particular user, or particular managerial group. So in this case, for the agent, we can combine details around how much has been allocated or what was the actual target for the collection division and what was the outcome, control that by dynamics, control that by calls, by numbers, and compare that to expected results. For the managerial level, we can create dashboards around more focused on financials, and this will give them, again, a combination of the data that we receive from financial systems and the outcome that we are able to record in Creatio. These dashboards are sensitive to user permissions, meaning that whoever is looking at this dashboard will be able to see analysis based on the data that person is allowed to see. But the end result, we are all able to understand if we are progressing properly in our debt collection strategy and debt collection channels, and are we making our target. So that's it.